Good morning. Welcome. This is so exciting to be in front of all of you today. How many in the room are in husband-wife partnerships? I know we have a lot of us within our consulting practices. So I was sitting backstage just a moment ago with Rick, and I said, how did I end up coming up after Molly to talk about the employment landscape? And he so nicely reminded me, as our spouses often do, that I made the agenda. So, I'm very excited actually to talk about the employment landscape, and we have an entirely different perspective that we're going to share with you today, and a way that we can kind of pull some control back into everything that we're doing. When we look at our businesses, how do we assess where we are today in order to plan for where we're going to go in the future? How do we really know where we want to be 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now? How do we judge our existing beliefs? Maybe challenge them. Maybe think outside the box to say, do I need to change? Do I need to have a paradigm shift? Do I have an old way of thinking where maybe I need to look a different direction and bring in something new? How do we challenge our assumptions about the future? How do you really do that on an annual basis, a quarterly basis, and in today's world, maybe a daily basis? How to really question what we think and where we're going. Over the next 20 minutes, I really want us to go through a journey to uncover the business landscape from two perspectives. One from an economic, but one from an employment perspective. Because these worlds are colliding right now. And if we separate these two worlds to determine how we're going to move to the future, we're probably going to miss the mark. Because the people are our future. And we have to look at what they're looking for in their roles, from their passions, and what they need from their leaders, and what they need from all of us. So we're going to go through this journey, and we're really going to talk about some perspectives. I want you to maybe look at some new perspectives as you go through this, and maybe validate some existing ones. I want us to really open our mind and our viewpoints to just think about all possibilities throughout the day, and how you can pull those nuggets of information back to help the businesses that you serve. As I talk to business leaders, colleagues, all of you, we're really in three camps right now as we look at the economy. Some of you in this room feel that we're headed towards the next recession. Many people think it might be a minor correction, maybe a bigger correction, but just a correction. And then there are several of you that I speak with that 2019 is going to be your best year ever. If we did a poll, we'd probably have a third of the room in each of these camps. So I want you to take about 30 seconds and privately just write down, where do you fall today? At the beginning of TTI SICon 2019, do you really think we're headed for a recession, a correction, or do you have the power to make this your best year ever? Think about that just a moment. As you go through that, perspectives can be a funny thing, right? Our perspectives ultimately develop our feelings. So your perspective on the economy right now, does that develop a feeling of crisis or opportunity? Does that cause you to be fearful or excited? Do you look at what we're about to experience and what we've been experiencing over the last several months as simply just a cycle or an evolution in the economy? It's supposed to happen. We're going to go through cycles. So that kind of leaves you feeling calm, right? It's expected. Or do you feel like we're making sharp left and sharp right turns? Does that give you a feeling of nervousness? The fact is we don't know what's going to happen with the economy over the next 12 to 24 months. Yes, there are many experts. Some of you in the room are probably experts on the economy. But we don't actually know. So what I'd like to do as we discuss this topic is let's focus on what we do know. We do know that we're going to have to constantly adapt to the ever-changing global marketplace. Our need for adaptation is increasing moment to moment. We do know that we're going to continue to have new technology rapidly developed and deployed into our market. Although, as Rick mentioned in the opening, you're seeing a couple really large companies start to bring humans back into the equation. He mentioned TurboTax, T-Mobile. Their whole campaign is all about how you get to pick up the phone and you actually talk to a person without pressing a number first, right? You can get to a person. And so they're bringing it back. People are tired of being on the phones and not having any connection to humans. They're intrinsically starved for solutions. So it'll be interesting how the technology plays out over the next 12 to 24 months. We're going to have new legal requirements coming into the market. We're always dealing with that, especially in our space, and making sure that we're flexible and we're fluid enough to adapt to that. When we're going to have new competition. We're going to have competition come within our industry and kind of rise up from within the industry. We're going to have competition that we were predicting would enter our space. And then we're going to have what seems like that overnight success pop up out of nowhere that disrupts different industries. So we'll continue to have that competition. At the same time, we're experiencing all of this indecision about the future. Our workforce is actually comprised of 5 different generations. And as we look forward to 2020, you'll see we still have several boomers, actually more boomers than Gen X by 2020 in the workforce. However, boomers are going to be representing less than 50% of our millennial population by comparison. And then we have Gen Z entering the workforce as well. I can't remember a conference that I've been to in recent years where the topic of millennials hasn't been tackled. Not here. I want us to tackle the topic of people. Millennials are people. Okay? Just making sure we're getting that straight. I want to tackle the topic of people, and I want to tackle that I actually believe it's a lot less about the age of our workforce, and it's a lot more about the fact that our workforce, regardless of generation, has found their voice. And they know how to use it. And they're using it in a variety of ways. Some ways we would prefer they didn't. But they are finding that voice and they are using it, and they can articulate their passions, their dreams, their desires. They understand and they believe that there are family and non-work related commitments that are just as important as what they're doing on the job. And they're not afraid to uphold those commitments. They're not willing to make those sacrifices because time is the one thing that we can't renew. So it's becoming our currency. Our employees know what they want, and they know what they don't want. They want to learn and acquire new skills. They want meaningful work and purpose. They want to excel. They want to be cared about personally. How many of you in this room would like these 4 things? How many of you want these 4 things for your own success? And we have all 5 generations in the room. If we really start to look at our similarities, we'll see we have a lot less differences than what we think. We want the same things. We need the same things. We're in an intrinsically starved world, and we're looking to fill that void. And this room can help do that. So what if we connected that voice to maximize that voice for the betterment of every single one of the organizations we serve? Think about it. Those voices are being heard around the globe and all over the internet. What are they saying about the companies you work with or work for? What's being put out there? What if we connected that voice to talk about the employer brand? Employer branding is a huge deal. As you see here, we're looking at people are changing jobs every 2 to 3 years. They're attributing so much of working for a company to the reputation of the CEO. How do they find out the information about the reputation for this CEO? Any guesses? Glassdoor. So often we'll talk with executives and they're like, Glassdoor, what? Or my favorite, only unhappy employees write anything on Glassdoor. Well, if all of your reviews are unhappy, there's a signal that something's going on. And don't get me wrong, I have a love-hate relationship with Glassdoor. When I'm helping all of you, I love it. It gives me amazing intel. I can look into trends in the organization. When has the rating been going up and going down? What's happening? What does the cultures tend to feel like? When I type in our company name in the URL, my belly turns just as yours does, because you don't have a lot of control as to what goes out there. But it doesn't matter what we think or what we know about the inside of our companies. It matters what that qualified talent out there that we're trying to capture knows about our company. And they know what's on Glassdoor.com. I've had senior level executives interviewing with me where they've actually brought in the ratings, and some of the ratings were 2 and 3 years old. Well, why did somebody say this about the company? How have you changed this? And they start interviewing me based on those Glassdoor reviews. So people are using that to make an informed decision. It's informing the brand. Our workforce has found their voice. We have to use that voice for the betterment of the company. So what can we do? What if we actually listened to that voice to transform who we are as leaders? How we lead and how we manage, and how we develop our employees. What if we listen to that voice for what they're really looking for? Recent HR.com research study that we had sponsored talked about the things that teams were trained on, and they were trained on things like teamwork and communication. And the things they needed, decision making, accountability. What if we listened to that voice to develop our teams and what it was that they were looking for? When we look at how we connect, I believe companies of the future will actually use this as a success metric to manage leadership. We've all heard the saying, and we probably all believe the saying, that people leave bosses, not companies, right? Rick asked earlier how many of you have been mismanaged, and how many of you are in the room because of that mismanagement. So people leave bosses, not companies. What if we collectively could change that? What if we could build the culture and the fabric of the organization so strong that employees within the organization would fight to stay for that mission and help senior leadership bring in other leaders who are right for the organization and help keep that intact? What if we could change it? What if we could maximize their voice for the betterment of our companies? And then innovation. What if we gave those voices a seat at the innovation table? I first saw Frans Johansson speak at Staffing World several years ago. And almost on a daily basis, his talk really runs through my head. And he really talks about polar opposite things, and where they intersect, you can create innovation and you can create amazing things. Obviously, he's going to talk to you a little bit later today. But think about that intersection. What if you could take polar opposite employees, sit them around a table to brainstorm on an idea or to how to solve a problem, and they truly listened for where the two of them intersected? And that's where they created a solution. Instead of each coming to the table with a preconceived idea of how you needed to move forward, they actually listened and heard each other. We allowed them to use their voice to better the company. But let's make no mistake, our employment landscape challenge is very, very real. As we know, we have record unemployment and a record low rate, and most of us in this room would say we have full employment. Agree? Full employment? We also know that we have more jobs opening and more voluntary quits happening than ever before. 3.58 million voluntary quits in July of 18. Voluntary quits. So I propose that we actually lean in, but not into organizations, not in the traditional way that we've been talking about leaning in for years. I think we need to lean into our people. We need to really engage with our people. We need to understand who they are. We need to connect in order to solve our employment crisis. How many of you have had a hiring manager or a client call you in the last few months completely stressed about finding the right candidate for a position? Right? They're asking, is there a different way that we can use the benchmarking and the assessments to attract somebody? Or what if I only have one and they don't match that benchmark? What am I going to do? Right? And so we find ourselves stepping backwards a little bit and talking about how you can manage through it. And if the wheels are going to fall off, where are they going to fall off? And how do you progress through that? But what if we leaned into all of our existing employees and we developed them and we coached them and we moved them forward in a way that they felt truly connected with the organization, not any specific individual within the organization? How could that help us? We must engage our workforce through an amazing employee experience. 51% of people were looking for a new job in September of 2018. And the primary reason was that their current position did not have meaning or purpose. We only have so many hours in our day and so many days in our week. And again, time we cannot renew. It has become our currency. Every generation wants to find purpose in what they're doing. They want to understand, regardless of their role, how they really connect to the organization. How do they make a difference towards the strategic vision? How do they make a difference to the top line and the bottom line? They want to understand how to connect with each of you and with the future of the company. They have to have meaning and purpose. At the same time that all these people are looking for jobs, we're having new opportunities in a variety of industries. And on average, it's taking 42 days to fill a position, 71 to 76 days in the C-suite. 71 to 76 days without a leader in a C-level role in a company if you have turnover. We need to engage our people. Earlier, I mentioned the connection between leaders and their team members. This was a recent study that was released on the PR web, talking about supported people versus non-supported people. Look at the difference it makes for supported employees and how they talk about their organization. 79% of employees who were supported said that their organization was a good place to work. Only 22% of employees who did not feel support from their managers said the same thing. So how do we get ahead of this? How do we change it? How do we, in essence, stop this employment bleeding and we start attracting new, qualified talent to our organizations? Training is one area, but not just for tomorrow. Sometimes I feel we get so caught up in making sure that we have these big, long career paths for employees. Employees aren't staying with companies for that long anymore. They're staying 2 to 3 years. Train them for the job they have today. Train them to be that A-plus player in the position that they have today. Obviously, yes, bringing in some of those new skills that they're going to need, but sometimes we lose sight of what they need to continue to be successful in the position that they've already achieved. We lose sight of continuing to train them on things like communication and emotional intelligence, teamwork. So train them for the job that they're in today. Don't just check that box and move on to training them for the next position. And then the connection. Connect every single role, from the lowest level position in the organization all the way to the top. How do you connect purpose with that? How do they understand the widget they're making, the file they're dragging? How does that connect to the goals of the organization? You know, Bill would tell the stories from this stage about passions and motivators. And he would talk about a dishwasher at a restaurant that he frequented. And this dishwasher had been washing dishes by hand there for years. And one day he went and he asked the dishwasher, he goes, "You've been doing this for a long time. Why?" And the dishwasher held up a glass and said, because I love the sparkle. He had passion and connection to his role. Every role can have that. But it's going to start with our point of view. It really starts with this room. Because the perspectives that we're going to go through over the next day and the perspectives we're going to see through are going to develop our feelings. Our feelings towards what's happening in our economic landscape, both from a workforce and an economy standpoint, are going to have us make choices. And ultimately, those choices will lead us to our outcomes in 2019 and beyond. We have that control. We have that power in the choices that we make. So I have just 4 questions for you. What perspectives are you going to see things through throughout the day today? What feelings will those perspectives develop? What choices will those lead to? And ultimately, what kind of impact will you have? What kind of impact are you going to have on this room, this conference, your business, and all the businesses you serve in 2019? Thank you.